Hello there, this is Cassia.
And this is Coden.
Welcome to the Ebon Hawk podcast, where we discuss Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, as well as everything Star Wars. Today, we will delve into lightsaber forms as explored in Knights of the Old Republic 2, and discuss which form we think certain KOTOR characters would use. Spoiler alert for Knights of the Old Republic series and the Star Wars films and TV shows. This is episode 25, and this is where the aggressive negotiations begin. So our first topic, we thought we'd just kind of go over what each of the 7 different lightsaber forms are. We're not going to discuss the Knights of the Old Republic 2 characters, even though in the KOTOR series that's where they're taught. Kreia and the Jedi Masters in KOTOR 2, they're the ones who teach you that. We're going to go over the KOTOR 2 characters in a future episode, but we just thought we would let you know what's up with each of the 7 lightsaber forms, give you a description and some examples.
The objective today is to keep it a little bit simple, but kind of shed some light on just what we've kind of seen and what it actually belongs to.
Form 1, it's called Shicho. It's the basic foundational fighting style that all younglings learn. It's kind of a little bit unpredictable, kind of like random strikes. It's good against larger groups, but it's vulnerable to more advanced saber forms, as the younglings found out in Revenge of the Sith. Kit Fisto is probably the most notable exemplar of Shicho.
Yes, it's kind of the basic form. It's not meant to be anything major. This form was kind of designed early on when the forms transitioned from the non-energy source of the non-lightsabers to the lightsaber, and so it's just kind of the traditional but dated lightsaber form that most Jedi will learn just going through the Jedi Temple.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the younglings in Attack of the Clones were all learning, was Shicho.
Yep.
And then you have Form 2, which is Makashi, and it's an elegant dueling style that favors fencing and tight swordplay. And the Makashi users, they emphasize speed, well-timed parries, and precision over flashy, slashy, all that. It's weaker against big groups and blasters, but it shines in one-on-one duels. I think that's why I like Form 2 the most, is because it's most notably based on fencing, which I love.
Yeah, this form was kind of introduced when the conflict between
Count Dooku.
Well, he brought it back, seeing that it was a huge weakness of the Jedi, and so he learned how to use it because he figured it would come in handy, of course. But it was actually brought up before then to start combating, the Jedi perspective, the Dark Jedi of the time, as Form 1 wasn't really built for lightsaber to lightsaber combat. It was more just built as a type of crowd control.
So if you're looking at the movies, Count Dooku is probably the most notable example of Makashi. And then with Form 3, we are brought to the high ground. Form 3 was a defensive form that was great against blasters, a single opponent or many opponents. It's a defensive form. It's a form that focuses on keeping calm and conserving your energy to outlast opponents, not to just kind of overcome them as soon as possible. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, he has the high ground in this form.
Yeah, he's probably the true master of Soresu.
I always pronounced it Sorsu.
Sorsu?
Maybe it's Sorisu. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
maybe, whatever.
But I definitely pronounce Form 4 as Ataru.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of the opposite of Form 3, is a heavy offensive lightsaber form. So just keeping on the offense to keep the opponent in their defensive.
Yeah, it focuses on speed, powerful swings, acrobatics, and they use the Force to fuel their body's strength. If you use it too long, it leads users to tire more quickly. And I think like maybe one of the most notable examples that's maybe overlooked is the Duel of the Fates, because that's what Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon were using then. And then, of course, you have Yoda in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith also using Ataru. Then Form 5, it's Xian or Jiamso, and it focuses on counterattacks. So if a blaster is shot at you, you're going to redirect the blaster right at who shot you, you know? And then with Jiamso, you focus on returning the lightsaber attacks. So it's all about counterattacks. You defend and then you attack and overwhelm opponents with superior physical strength. And then Anakin and Darth Vader, they excelled in this form.
So you had kind of noted that you really like Form 2 because of its fencing kind of roots, and I actually really like Form 5 with my own like sword fighting. I do a little bit of Form 5 and then transition to Form 2 if I need to. It's kind of where I get a little bit of my combat practice.
And then Form 6 is Neiman. It was nicknamed the Diplomat style. It combines the previous 5 styles into a general style that has no notable weaknesses, but also no notable strengths. For me, it's kind of the basic style, kind of boring. It channels relaxed and simple blade work. From Knights of the Old Republic, Atris, the icy Jedi librarian from Knights of the Old Republic 2, she was a noted basic Neiman user, you know? And then Ahsoka Tano, she used the Forms dual wielding style, which is Darkai. And then Form 7, it is Juyo and Vapad. And Juyo was the deadliest form, and it naturally invites the dark side. So that's why it's preferred by the Sith, because then they could like focus all their rage and malice into it. Maul obviously used Juyo. And then Mace Windu created Vapad so that he could channel his inner darkness and use it to fight for the light. So those are all the forms. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Let's take a quick break and then we'll break down where we see these forms with our KOTOR characters.
So today we're looking at some of the most notable Jedi and Sith characters from Knights of the Old Republic, and we thought the best place to start would be with Revan. Grey Jedi 101 says, I'd say Mikashi. J. Murray Athletic says Mikashi and Ataru. Keats Bradley says Revan probably used Ataru, which is an aggressive but balanced single-bladed style. Astro Droid, Form 2, or something approaching what would become Form 7. A longer time ago, says Jiamso. Mysteries of the Force, I believe Revan would use Neiman, the reason being he uses 2 lightsabers. Ironic Design says Jarkai or Neiman. Legions of the Sith says, I think Revan had probably used Form 6 and maybe a mix of Form 7. Star Wars Lore says, I want to say Revan used Form 5 and 7. I don't know. I just see Revan majestically mastering Vapad. What do you think, Coden?
So I think definitely Form 6 when he's wielding both his red and purple lightsaber. I could go either way with Form 5 or Form 7 when he's just using one. I think in the KOTOR span, I think the game basically has the engine to only show like Form 1. But I think that I see Revan using Form 5 a lot more than Form 7, but maybe we could have seen some Form 7 in his more Sith days.
He does use dual wielding, so I think he is proficient with 6.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's a single wielder, I think it's either Form 5 or 7. maybe Form 5 when he is kind of just a neophyte Padawan, and then, like, as he kind of gets more of his memories back, I think he would be able to kind of find the balance within and kind of achieve something like Mace Windu's Vapod. Yeah, it's just interesting, like, to have one character, and some people say 2, 4, like, we almost have all of the forms for Revan, so yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to see him using something like Form 2 just because, like, the era that he was more of in, like, a military position, so one-on-one wouldn't be particularly useful.
I mean, maybe it could be a bit more, like, less like Count Dooku, but maybe like a Errol Flynn kind of swashbuckling dueling. I could maybe see that, but for me, it's probably 5 or 7 when he's using one lightsaber, and then with 2, it's 6, I would say. Next up, we have Bastila. Grey Jedi 101 says Bastila is like a mix of Shicho and Sorsu. And then Legion of the Sith says Bastila probably used Form 4. Strictly Star Wars says maybe Ataru. Jedi Amortal, Ataru. Ghost Fighter X says the 5th style. Mysteries of the Force says I believe she used Neiman because of the double-bladed lightsaber. And then J. Murray Athletics says Juyo. What do you think?
And all, like, the main, like, material showing off Bastila, she's wielding a double-bladed lightsaber, and so I think her preferred fighting style is Form 6, and she might be able to tap into some of the others because she is kind of a bit more like it back before she probably got her double-bladed lightsaber. I could see her using a bit more of like a Force relying lightsaber form, but as she's settled on the double blade, it's definitely Neiman.
Yeah, I think because she was raised to be kind of the perfect Jedi, even before, like, she had a double-bladed lightsaber after her first encounter with Revan on the flagship, she probably is very familiar with 6, but I kind of think she would be a little bit more flashy or aggressive, so I wouldn't see her delving into Sorsu. I could maybe see her kind of mixing in some Ataru moves with her double-bladed lightsaber, kind of being a little bit more acrobatic because she kind of naturally channels a bit more force, like, through her battle meditation. And then maybe, like, because she doesn't really have enough, like, balance to do Sorisu, she would maybe be a little bit more aggressive. She kind of is a little bit like Anakin. I could see her kind of mixing in some of GM So. But I think once she falls to the dark side, I think she would be channeling a little bit of the Form 7 like Darth Maul did.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And then next we have Darth Malak. And this is one where a lot of people said a lot of things that it kind of got me thinking, because I see Darth Malak as kind of just a little bit of a carbon copy of Darth Vader. So I'll read these and then you can give your thoughts, then I'll give mine. Jedi Amortal says Makashi. Ironic Design says Makashi or Sorsu. The Knights of the Old Rep says Ataru. Mysteries of the Force says Ataru for sure. In KOTOR, he jumps at the end of his combos and he's really aggressive. A Longer Time Ago says GM So. Ghost Fighter X, the 5th one. So what are your thoughts?
I'd have to agree with GM So because of how much of a Vader resemblance there is. And that is kind of the Anakin Vader way, is to just overpower by strength and to kind of use the opponent's lightsaber against them. And so Form 5, GM So.
Yeah, because he was a Jedi Guardian before he fell to the dark side, and I kind of just see him evoking that kind of tragic hero's fall and being a Form 5 user. But I kind of wonder if I would find him more interesting if he used Makashi, just something unexpected. And then Mysteries of the Force, when they mentioned that he jumps at the end of his combos, I'm like, oh yeah, he did do that. So I just wonder if they kind of just would do Makashi or Ataru, if that would maybe warm me up to Darth Malak. Even though I'm pretty sure he would be Form 5, like, I was like, oh,
well, even,
let's see a dark side user using Ataru.
even Anakin's GM so does mix in a little bit of Ataru, like not a lot, but there is some Ataru influence with it. And so I can see that some some bleed could take place, and like most of these forms, they aren't, you can mix them. You don't have to follow one like strictly. That's kind of where I said that I kind of switched between GM So and a Makashi. But yeah, I think that his primary would be the GM So, and we might see
Yeah.
a little bit of Ataru, like maybe a little bit.
Yeah. It would just be fun to see, like, we've seen a lot of Lightsiders use Ataru. It would just be fun to just see, I don't know, like a dark side Yoda or something one day. But yeah, let's talk about Jolie Bindo. Knights of the Old Rep says Shicho. Grey Jedi 101, Jolie is Makashi. J. Murray Athletic says Makashi or Sorsu. Keats Bradley, Jolie might have used Sorsu, which is a defensive form and the same one used by Obi-Wan. Mysteries of the Force, Sorsu would be my guess. Jolie isn't into combat and seems to be more defensive. And then a longer time ago says Sorsu. What are your thoughts, Coden?
Yeah, I'm pretty torn between Shicho and Sorsu. I could go either way on that.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat because he did fight in some of the old Sith Wars, but you kind of just get the sense he's not about that warrior life. I see some resemblances with Obi-Wan. When you find Jolie, he is on Kashyyyk. He's kind of living like a simple existence, so I would see him as either a Form 1 user or a Sorsu user because not about he's not about being flashy or overwhelming people. He's kind of more about like finding the balance, and so I think he would definitely be a Form 3 user, which is more a defensive form. And then Juhani. Just every time I think of Juhani, I just think of her quote, "I will be your doom," So, yeah. Jedi Amor Tall says Shicho. Knights of the Old Rep says Sorsu. A longer time ago says Ataru. And Mysteries of the Force says Ataru. She's more of an aggressive character, and I believe when she fell, she used Juyo. Astrodroid says Form 4 or a 4 and 6 hybrid. Then Ghost Fighter X says the 7th style. So what do you think?
I don't know. I'd say maybe I'd probably agree with Shicho on that one.
Oh yeah? I guess I could see that one. I think definitely when she fell, she probably used Juyo. And I could see the argument for Ataru. There's lots of pictures where she's leaping. But I kind of see her as someone who uses Form 5, just kind of in that Jedi Guardian, a bit more of an aggressive character. Probably she would use the 5th form like GM So, but probably able to dip into Form 4 and Form 7, depending on where she is in her journey. And then, do you remember Darth Bandon? He was the guy who, if you remember Darth Bandon, he was Darth Malik's apprentice with a double-bladed lightsaber. He killed Trask Olgo, who was a Republic soldier and someone with no inside voice. What do you think he used?
So he's seen with a mix of double and single blade lightsaber. So I'm gonna say, and just from what we see in the game and things, I'd also kind of run with either a Form 6 or a Form 5, depending on which lightsaber type he's using.
Yeah, I think Darth Bandon is kind of a bit of a Darth Maul clone, so I kind of see him as Form 6 or Form 7, like in the way that Darth Malik is kind of a little bit of a Darth Vader clone. I kind of just see him as like a Form 7 and kind of like an early adversary, like as Revan is kind of relearning the skills, just like a miniature adversary, but still a good adversary to overcome. So yeah, in the future, we'll go over some of the lightsaber forms out of the smorgasbord of Knights of the Old Republic 2 Jedi and Sith characters. It's gonna be a lot. All right, this has been Cassia.
And this has been Coden.
You can find us on Instagram at Ebonhawk Podcast.
And then you can email us your comments and questions at ebonhawkpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me specifically on twitch.tv/Codenbon, streaming various games, typically Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. That's like Mountain Standard Time. I also have an Instagram account, so if you want to follow me there, it's just at Codenbon.
Our podcast can be found on Anchor-supported podcasts at The Ebonhawk. We're always grateful for subscriptions and reviews. And our intro and outro themes were composed by Alistair Scheuermann. He can be found at alistairsounds.wixsite.com/Alistair Sounds. And our transition music was composed by Christian Walker. He can be found at christianwalkermusic.com. This has been episode 25 of The Ebonhawk. May the Force be with you. We'll be back soon. Bye for now.